professional journalists. And that you recognize was still, and it's a growing issue.
And to be a good journalist and to have language skills, you must be a voracious reader. This is what I tell young people who come to us. I say, read the agency copy. You might not agree with what they are saying, but you will learn how a professional would structure a story, how they would know how to extract a colorful quote when they are talking to somebody, and use it. So people of my generation usually have lots of, material in our heads, encounters, various things which can be used when the occasion arises. I mean, I used to remember Denzil Piris telling me that if you understand what you're writing about, the words will come. And for the words to come, they must be part of your vocabulary. And if you read, all kinds of new words, new expressions, new thoughts get into your head, and they flow when the occasion demands it.
And one of America's best-known journalists, Cronkite, died a few days ago from the recording of this program. And he was once called the most trusted man in America. And I even asked to run for political office, which he declined. Are journalists trusted people in Sri Lanka? Is journalism trusted? Has that trust declined in 5 decades?
It's hard to say. The journalists are trusted to the extent that a very large proportion of our population believe something they read in the newspapers. They would say with an air of certainty, but I read it in the papers, and it must be so. Having worked in the newspapers, I know that just because it appeared in the papers, that is certainly not a guarantee of accuracy or correctness.
Is there a case for media literacy in Sri Lanka, which I've always found is lacking and is poor?
Well, in the English, I think, Sanjana, you are talking more of the English media than of the indigenous language media.
You think that
I think that the Sinhala, I don't speak Tamil, and I can't comment with any knowledge on what prevails in Tamil, but I'm sure it's the same as where Sinhala is concerned. The people who work in those languages, they know the language. Now, I used to, at a point of time, I learned very early in my career that a political speech that was made, say, at Anuradhapura or at Mahiyangana, it's much better to read the Sinhala copy
rather than
the English. Because the correspondent who was reporting it understood the language in which the speech was being made, and he sent his story in that language. When that same correspondent whose English was marginal tries to send something in English, then there are all kinds of distortions. So I learned very early that, for instance, if Jaya Jayawardena made a speech somewhere out in the countryside, and there was a byline saying by a Mahiyangana correspondent, it's much better to read that in the Dinamina or the Lankadeepa than in the Daily News.
Particularly because Jaya's Sinhala was an idiom as well.
Well, right, and JR, while he was not a great Sinhala speaker, he communicated effectively and adequately. He could convey what he wanted to say to his audience.
In terms of mentoring journalism in Sri Lanka, I want to end on this note. You probably have more experience than any other print journalist in the country. But you know, and this is a fact, that journalism itself is fractured and splintered both within the print and then from the print to the broadcast, and within broadcast as well. It's factionalism, personal petty egos. You've risen above that fray to a large degree. And if you agree to that submission, how can you, or do you feel you can, change the media culture writ large in this country, now that you don't have the burden of war and you're looking towards a new future?
I think all of us in the media must recognize our faults and also be open to constructive criticism, to criticism altogether. And where we are wrong, we must be willing to correct ourselves. We must be big enough to say that we've been wrong, we are sorry about it, and we will improve on where we are now. With that kind of positive mindset, I think we can move on further, because certainly in the at the time that I began my newspaper career, nobody was shot dead or brutally murdered because he was a journalist. Certainly in this country, and that has changed. Now, hopefully, now that the war is over, I hope that this kind of looking for journalists in white vans will end.
And in terms of this opinion shared by your colleagues, are you
I think so. I think
in the
I think that
field as well?
Yes, I think the more thoughtful people are looking for improvements. And also, the government must understand. What I wanted to say is that there is a definite need for an adversarial relationship between the press and the government, because that will ensure better government than we are seeing today. So people in government must not resent that.
And it doesn't translate into physical violence against?
No, certainly not. And merely because an investigative story exposes somebody, there must be tolerance. And at the same time, the media must not think that we have the power of the media.
Yeah.
We have this muscle, and we must use it to shock people in authority. I think the media must not use the power of the press unfairly, and governments must understand that an adversarial relationship will be really in the interest of good governance. I hope that when there are media exposes, that governments respond to it.
Yeah.
And far too often we see a situation where they ignore it and pretend it doesn't happen.
Or worse.
Or worse.
Yeah. And so, oxymoron as it may sound, a civil adversity, if you can call it that, is what you want.
Yes, I think that would be the way to sum it up.
Manik, thank you very much for joining us today, and I do hope you're right in all that you said, and certainly wish that you as a senior journalist can instill this culture that we so desperately need in the media in the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.